The message from Sunday's World Cup final, presided over by Donald Trump, was simple. Love. L-O-V-E. That was the word plastered across the pitch in the schmaltzy halftime show put together by Chris Martin. But within 24 hours, there was no love lost between two of the tournament's co-hosts. On Monday, Trump slapped 50% tariffs on a swathe of Canadian goods. Consumer items like wine and hockey sticks and industrial goods such as cement are among the goods targeted. Trump says that this is in retaliation for what he called, quote, unequal treatment of US cars, dairy, and alcohol. But he also has another gripe with his neighbours to the north, wildfire smoke. On Saturday, he accused Canada's Mark Carney of poisoning America's air and said he would make Canada pay for the damage via extra tariffs. He was asked about that in a press conference today.
Increased tariffs on Canada yesterday. Can you say if you still expect to impose tariffs on the wildfire problem, and can you say when you might impose 301?
A lot of damage has been done. They're not managing their forests properly, and the wind has a tendency to blow right over New York City, right over, you saw Detroit, they had to close the whole place. Michigan was really affected. They had to close businesses for 4 days. It's very serious what they're doing, and they don't seem to be able to do anything about it. If they managed their forests, they wouldn't have the fires.
That had the potential to be a Trump all-timer. The wind has a tendency to blow. And then he carried on. I thought he was just going to say that. That would be fabulous. But Michael, it does indeed have a tendency to blow. What's going on here? I mean, it's not an accident that the day after the World Cup is finished that Trump is doing this, right?
I've got no idea. I mean, the wildfire stuff was before the World Cup. So I think maybe that was on Saturday.
So that's what I'm saying, he's waiting, right? Or no?
Well, no, I mean, the wildfire tweets were before the end of the World Cup. The 50% tariffs are after the World Cup. Yeah, so maybe he did wait until after the World Cup for the 50% tariffs. But the wildfire stuff is crazy. Because I think about geoengineering quite a lot. You know, I'm still on the fence about it, but I think we're probably going to do it at some point. I mean, climate change is
such a broad term, by the way. People get upset. Geoengineering can mean painting the top of a city white.
No, but I think it's going to happen in one of the more extreme
crazy ways.
One of the more crazy ways, right?
Right.
Trying to change the weather.
A lens between the planet and the sun.
The two ways that are the extreme ways, but which probably would work to some degree, but would have consequences, are you put some sort of reflectant in the stratosphere. Sulfur dioxide is the classic one.
Like gas, right?
But so particulates.
Yeah.
So it's particulates. So it'd be like sulfur dioxide, soot, that kind of thing. That would go in the stratosphere, right?
My plan to address climate change: smog.
Smog. Well, it's from historically, it's from volcanoes. So when the volcano erupts and it's big and it goes up super high, then in the past that has brought down global temperatures by a degree for a year. So if you just do that over and over again with planes in the stratosphere, you could have some effect.
Wouldn't lots of crops die as well, though?
Well, so this is where it's problematic because you don't know what the effect is going to be on the weather system. Now, the argument against that is we don't know what's going to happen to the weather system with climate change anyway. But anyway, there are going to be lots of consequences. And one of the big arguments against it is what country does it? And if that affects the weather in another country, how can this be resolved in a peaceful way, which isn't completely inequitable? This is what I talked about with Naomi Klein in that interview. And she was saying, because I was saying, the only really positive outcome I can see is sort of we get our emissions down, but in the meantime, we're going to have to do some sort of geoengineering. I don't know if it's going to be marine cloud brightening, which is where you just sprinkle a bit of water on top of the clouds so they're a bit whiter, so they reflect a bit of sun, or this stratospheric aerosol injection. So the best case scenario is we bring down emissions because ultimately we're already so far through the green transition that it's cheaper to get to, or cheaper to have electrification anyway, with cars, solar, renewables. But we do that in the meantime. And she said, which I think is a good point, we have a responsibility not to imagine the best case scenario. We have a responsibility to imagine the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And who is going to be managing these geoengineering projects? It's not going to be these super rational bureaucrats that you like to imagine running the world. It's going to be people like Donald Trump. And someone like Donald Trump, literally he's trying to tariff Canada because they have a wildfire. You know, it doesn't give you much faith that we're going to have a political system which is capable of dealing with planetary level geoengineering.
But going back to my question about what is geoengineering. So for instance, some people argue for, and this would be hugely demanding in terms of energy, but basically shooting water back onto the Arctic ice to stop
Yeah.
it melting. I mean, that's technically geoengineering, right?
Yeah.
And this would be done via, renewable energy. So I guess a combination maybe of hydrothermal, because of course you're near volcanoes in the Arctic, and maybe some solar as well. Geothermal rather. That's people.
Well, I talked to
People hear geoengineering and they start to get really concerned, but it's the crazy, it's the relatively mundane.
Well, I talked
such
to
as
Sir
that.
David King, and so the idea with sort of pumping water, you dig holes in the ice,
Yeah.
which encourages more water to come to the surface, and when the water comes to the surface, it freezes.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that will thicken the ice in the Arctic. I asked Sir David King about that when he was on the show. So he's the former chief scientific advisor. He's interested in the idea, but he said that salty water often tends to melt stuff. So he wasn't sure about that. It's often fresh water that's sort of.
But
on the top of
another one is basically you just pump water that's surrounding the ice caps back onto the top of the ice.
Yeah, but that's
caps.
what he's saying. But then he's worried that the salt will
you won't
cause
be
it to melt.
You wouldn't be digging down. This is pumping stuff that's
Which-
already water outside of the.
Yeah, but it's the sea. You're pumping the seawater
appreciate
onto
that.
the ice, either by drilling holes in the ice or doing it from the outside. But I
Obviously,
think
the drilling is, people might be a bit concerned.
But the drilling isn't the problem. The problem is getting the salt water on the top of it. Does that actually
Mm.
have unintended consequences? So the two ones that are talked about most is stratospheric aerosol injection, where you're putting some form of particulate in the stratosphere, like these volcanic eruptions, or marine cloud brightening, where you are making clouds brighter so they reflect more sun.
And what about Peter Thiel's one? This is like a cosmic
Does
parasol.
he want the cosmic parasol mirror thing?
Yeah, where they say, well, look, we just need to basically cut out 2% of, of the sun's light that hits the
Well,
planet.
that's what stratospheric
Same
aerosol
principle, I
injection would
know.
be doing.
Yeah, same principle. But what about Peter Thiel's crazy idea?
I'm not sure what his mirror idea is. I'm
Of
not.
a cosmic parasol.
I'll need to. But I think
It's kind of like a giant lampshade in space. And it's just obscuring a small percentage of the sun's energy hitting the planet.
Yeah. Well, I don't
You
know.
a fan?
I don't know what his particular proposal is, but that's exactly the same sort of physics as stratospheric aerosol injection, which is to stop 2% of the sun's heat getting to the Earth.
Michael Walker in the chat is really polarizing lots of people today. Good. It's good. It's good to be. It's not looking good, Brev. Somebody said. Well, it's good to hear these arguments. Michael, I'm so happy you've been on the show tonight and you've been so erudite because I don't know why. Maybe I'm coming down with something. Maybe it is too hot.
It is too hot, Aaron.
We turned off the fans and the aircon and my brain stopped working. Michael said this. He said your brain is better when you're cold.
I said this is the right temperature for watching a movie. It's not the right temperature to have interesting thoughts.
Maybe you were right. I feel like I'm regressing to my lizard brain. We didn't talk yesterday because, of course, you were hosting the show. I wasn't on it. What did you think of the World Cup final?
The right team won.
You're a big Spain guy, right? You love Spain.
I love Spain, but also, I would have loved England. I would have preferred England to win the World Cup, but Argentina, it was outrageous. I think they played disgustingly. The end, like when the guy is celebrating winning the World Cup final and like he gets punched in the face, it's crazy. I don't know what is wrong with that. That it was very controversial that the England manager in 1966 said the Argentina players were animals.
Alf Ramsey, yeah.
Yeah. There'll be many people in the world saying that after watching that World Cup. Problematic, but
We were saying
whole
about a
world
group of
hates them.
players, not a whole
Yeah.
country. I think that's very important.
it's very. I loved seeing Enzo Fernandez getting sent off. He deserved it, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best World Cup final.
Such a shame.
England versus Spain would have been much more entertaining.
Such a shame. Because I obviously wanted England to win the semi-final, but there was a part of me seeing Argentina, who I think are, outside of Messi, a very limited team, the way they came together to play for each other in their country. I really admire that, actually. I think it's a really great thing.
They do sing the national anthem with gusto.
Oh, they really go for it, well, especially against England. And I thought there was something to that, but not good with the final. And I should say, Michael, for all the bashing that France and Spain get from the Yanks, I think average life expectancy in France, 83. Average life expectancy in Spain, 84. France, world-leading nuclear. Spain, world-leading solar. Higher productivity per hour than Japan or South Korea. Great food. Beautifully kept cities. Best high-speed systems in the world outside China. Europe gets a lot right.
Yeah, they're doing all right.
Stop the hate. Stop the hate. Thanks, Michael, for joining me tonight. I really needed it with the heat slowing me down. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Come back tomorrow for another live stream from 6 p.m. For now, you've been watching Novara Media. Good night.